Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. As you know, this is a presenter, Ginger Stories, and I'm hoping that you're fine. My role here is always to talk to you about contemporary things that are happening in the United States. Now, for the recent period, things have been happening crazily in the United States, of course, and this has left everyone talking. I mean, look at just the beginning of this week talking about the tariffs, Trump putting tariffs, and this is affecting the global market, everyone complaining about everything which is happening. And this made me see a different perspective of how people see the United States. I've never seen people lose so much hope in the United States ever in human history. I mean, this year marked everything that everyone who prophesies the fall of the United States. Now, I'm having a geopolitical analyst who is called Paul Warburg. Paul Warburg is an American who really sees that America might not recover from the problem that it has gotten into itself into. And this is true because this is backed up by people's comment, people trying to say about how they want to leave the United States, how they're not seeing any future in the United States. I want us to watch this video by Paul Warburg. He's an American geopolitical analyst, and he gives important perspectives of why he sees that America will never recover from what it has gotten itself into. So let's watch the video. For those watching us for the first time, kindly consider subscribing to the channel, join our membership. Really get to see what we can offer you. For those who are supporting me through my Cash App, through the Super Thanks, I'm really grateful. Now, let's get into it. I'll be back with my thoughts and also commentaries of the same. So let's watch the video. I'll be back.
So we're seeing a trend with Donald Trump right now that a lot of people are finding very confusing. And I'm not just talking about people who are opposed to Trump. I'm also talking about ardent Trump supporters and pretty much everybody in between. Where Donald Trump is now on a very consistent basis implementing paradigm-shifting foreign policies that have a massive impact that he then reverses within a very short period of time, before those foreign policies have even had the time to achieve their stated goals and the stated desires that brought about the policies in the first place. I describe this as sort of whiplash policy, where things just change so quickly that people cannot even keep up with them. And this whiplash policy is causing some very interesting trends, where America is accumulating the baggage of these decisions without getting the positives that the decisions were supposed to bring in return. And what I mean by that is, as these policies are implemented and then reversed, pieces of the negative outcomes remain, but the positive things aren't achieved. And it is progressively making the United States weaker with every single decision. And the latest iteration of that has, in my view, permanently weakened the position of the United States when it comes to global trade. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. The specific foreign policy I'm talking about right now is obviously the recent whiplash approach to tariffs, which in recent days has created some unprecedented trends. Where just yesterday, we were looking at one of the largest single-day stock market crashes in U.S. history as a result of the market reacting to Donald Trump putting tariffs on literally almost every country on Earth, which was then followed by this morning's decision for Donald Trump to remove those tariffs, or rather to pause them for a period of 3 months, although they weren't totally paused. They were just reduced to a level of 10% rather than the reciprocal tariffs that Trump was going to announce. Now, I shouldn't have to say this, but it bears saying at the forefront that neither of these things are good. It is obviously not good when the stock market has record-breaking single-day crashes, but it is also equally not good when it then bounces back with single-day record-breaking gains. Because what this signals is a massive amount of volatility in the stock market and a market that is open to manipulation, and therefore a market that is not dependable for the kind of institutional, long-term strategic thinking investors that make up a huge percentage of the capital in the stock market. Put bluntly, what we're seeing right now is somewhat unprecedented in U.S. history, where a single person, a president, shows that they have the power or the ability to manipulate the market in one way or another based on their own personal whims. The United States, of course, was designed with checks and balances, and the power to implement things like tariffs that can create these effects is power that is supposed to rest in the hands of Congress, not just a single person, not just the president. But because of various loopholes, Congress has basically given that power to the president, and now the president is enacting tariffs or taking tariffs back on his own whim. Now, just on its surface, this is a problem because there is not enough consistency for any investors to take advantage of either the benefits of free trade or the benefits of a tariff economy, small as they might be. People can't invest heavily in free trade strategies because they don't know if the president is going to implement a tariff policy tomorrow that is going to destroy their business model. But equally, people cannot start investing in infrastructure in the United States to start taking advantage of the protections that are offered by tariffs, even though, in my opinion, those are pretty small. But even then, they can't invest to take advantage of the benefits of tariffs if they can't even count on the tariffs still being in place next week. What that does is it forces the economy into a state of stagnation and panic and inaction where nobody knows what to do next. But that also means that the mere reversal of a tariff policy cannot undo its negative effects. And this has not been adequately recognized by the US stock market. If you look at a stock price graph, what you will see is a massive crash that is then made up by a massive recovery that basically equals out the crash, which of course, from a rational standpoint, makes no sense at all. Because if the crash was caused by tariffs, because people were uncertain about the economic future that tariffs brought, the crash cannot equalize back to where it was before because the tariffs have not been completely reversed. A 10% tariff was left on almost every country on Earth, and even the tariffs on China were not removed, but they were instead ramped up now to an excessively high number, currently sitting at 104%. And so what we see is people in the United States irrationally thinking that because Trump has changed his mind, that everything is going to be fine and dandy and back to normal. And that's obviously not the case. But that's not the case for more reasons than just what I've stated here. It's also not the case because people are completely underestimating the psychological impact that these whiplash policies are having on the rest of the world and their willingness to trade with us. When it comes to the current Trump approach to foreign policy of just implementing massive changes and then quickly reversing them if they don't seem to be working the way that we thought they would work, we actually have well-documented evidence at this point, several different types of evidence of how just reversing the policy doesn't reverse the effects. The first comes when we look at Canada and Mexico and Trump's first false start tariff attempt. Obviously, when it comes to Mexico and Canada, when Trump first came into office, he immediately announced that he was going to be putting tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and then very quickly reversed that decision, or at least paused that decision, and didn't put the tariffs right away like he said he was going to. That reversal, though, did not improve Canadian sentiment towards American markets. In fact, even though the tariffs were not in place, the negative impacts to the US economy started immediately. And that was because Canadians felt attacked, and they immediately started a Made in Canada movement, or at least a we're not going to buy anything made in the United States movement, where very quickly, at the first sign of distrust, they started decoupling their economy from the United States as quickly as they could and started looking for partners wherever they could. Now, the process of decoupling the economy is not immediate. It takes time to make all of the changes necessary. But the psychology that causes people to want to decouple the economy is durable, and Canada is one example. Another example of this isn't with tariffs, but it's actually with Trump's decision to pause military aid to Ukraine, which he then resumed within just about a week, making the decision seem basically pointless because it didn't achieve whatever the stated goal or outcome was. But the negative effects of that decision were durable. When it came to the arms trade, I have a whole video on this. As soon as the rest of the world saw that they could not trust the United States as a military partner because they were willing to pull the rug out at any time, even though the U.S. had reversed its decision, trust had been broken, and a lot of contracts for the U.S. arms industry were canceled. And I've actually received emails from CEOs of American tech companies that focus on selling tech to the military who have told me that they have, in fact, lost most of their market overnight and are probably going to have to shutter their doors because this one moment in time decision caused people to lose trust in the United States and immediately look for trading partners elsewhere. Now, just like Canada's economy, decoupling your military from purchasing American weapons is not an overnight process, but the psychology that leads the process to start is not quickly reversed. And what we see in both of these cases is that just because the decision is changed, again, the outcomes don't get changed. And I know I'm repeating that over and over because when you forget every other detail in this video, I want you to remember that point weeks from now. Just because you reverse a bad policy decision doesn't mean that the bad outcomes get automatically reversed. Now, notably, in both of these examples that I've shared, the reason that we see for the negative effects being durable is because the trust has been broken. In one case, we see the trust broken on a governmental level, where governments will officially seek different types of contracts to supply their militaries. On the other hand, in one, we see that the trust is broken at a personal level in the minds of individuals, with individuals living within Canada, or for example, in Europe or Australia or anywhere else, just not wanting to purchase from the United States anymore because they feel attacked. And this makes complete sense. I mean, if you just think about it from a common sense standpoint, if you have somebody that you have a good relationship with, and all of a sudden they just wake up one day and you're hanging out like you normally do, and they just punch you in the face out of nowhere. All it takes is one punch. Even if they stop punching you, even if they never punch you again, the trust that you had with that person is going to be broken, perhaps permanently, but even if it's not broken permanently, it's going to be broken for a very long time. And the nature of your relationship is going to change. Trust is built over a lifetime, but it's lost in a moment. And when somebody punches you in the face for no reason, you are well within your rights to start looking for a different friend group. And that's sort of what we see on a global scale. And now that this new tariff push has been made, where it's not just limited to Canada or Mexico or China, but every country in the world has essentially been threatened and punched in the face by the United States, that trust is broken, and we can't really blame the world for looking for other alternatives. Now, in all of this, we see the inherent danger in approaching political deal-making the same way you would approach business deal-making, because there's a massive difference between negotiating a business deal, or like a real estate deal in Trump's case, between that and negotiating a deal with an entire nation. When you're negotiating a business deal and you want to flex your walk-away power and you want to show how tough you are and how much you don't care about the other person, you can, in a sense, do that because you never have to deal with that person again. And it's also an isolated incident, and it's an isolated person or an isolated set of people who are all playing the same game as you. They all know that you're in this deal. They're trying to get the best they can. You're trying to get the best you can. And so if you go to loggerheads while you're negotiating that deal and people get hurt in the process, Both of you are kind of thinking, well, that's just fair. That's how business is done. The problem with that, though, on a political standpoint, is that when you are negotiating deals with national leaders, their opinions and the people playing the game aren't the only people that matter. There are actually individuals within those nations who make independent choices that are independent of their government policy. And individuals, when they feel wronged, they can make whatever decisions they want, even if government policy pokes and prods them in a different direction. So, for example, individual people, if they feel slighted by the United States, they don't have to purchase US-made products. And you can see examples of this by just looking in the comments of this video, because I'm sure there will be hundreds of comments of people saying, I was going to buy an American-made car, but now I'm going to buy a different car just because I don't want my money going to the United States. Now, this can be hard to track with data, or actually it's not hard to track with data, because all you have to do is look at how many Teslas have been sold in Europe since the presidential election and compare that to the number of Teslas that were being sold in Europe before the presidential election. What you will see is that independent decision makers will make decisions that rational economic theory doesn't say they should make. Rational economic theory says if I reverse a tariff policy, well, the impacts of the tariff policy should be reversed with it. But real human psychology tells you that when you slight people, they will make decisions that in some ways are not in their best interest. People who, for all other reasons, might have preferred to purchase an American product or an American service now might not do so, even though they want to, because they don't want to do business with somebody who they feel has betrayed them. Now, instead of recognizing these basic realities, the American approach to foreign politics lately has been treating the real world almost as if it is a video game, as if you can just pull levers to kind of see what happens and see what they do. And if it doesn't work out, you can just reverse your decisions, and the video game analogy, you can just load your last save and things will go back to normal. But in real life, you can't just load your last save. Every action has consequences, and you really need to think about those consequences, and you need to listen to the experts who are warning you about those consequences instead of ignoring them and just pulling the lever to see what it does anyways. Yes, in the political world, this means that change can take a very long time, especially if it is done well. And I'm sorry for touching my face. There's mosquitoes all over me. But in the political world, it can take a long time to enact change, and that's not a bad thing. It is a good thing to not just take action when you don't understand the consequences of that action. It is a good thing to slow down and think through what is going to happen, all the things you might not anticipate before just pulling levers, because as we can see here, just pulling levers, it doesn't work. So as we can see, now even if tariffs are permanently pulled, and they're probably not, they're probably going to come back, but even if now at this point tariffs are permanently pulled and they never come back except for the 10% level they're currently at, the US will already have lost a significant chunk of the European market, which is a $20 trillion market. And the US will also have lost a significant portion of the Chinese market, which is another $20 trillion market. And a lot of Americans will say, well, who cares? We'll just trade internally with each other. And you can do that to a certain degree, but at the end of the day, having a larger global market for your products is always better. And most companies, when they build products, they are relying on international markets to make the profits that they need to keep their people employed. As the United States loses portions of these markets, and therefore companies in the United States lose profits, that is also going to shrink the size of the US market. Because when employers lose profits, they have to cut employees, or they have to not offer as high of salaries. And then the people within that market don't have as much money that they can go out and spend on whatever they want. And on it goes down the cycle. So what we see now is America has permanently, or at least for the foreseeable future, lost the global trade position that they had and that they did not have to get rid of, but already the effects are already too late. And with that global trade position, we're not just shrinking our international markets, but in the long term, we are probably shrinking our domestic market as well, because that's how economics works in a globalized world. So now what we see in all of this is that the United States is getting the cost, the negatives of the tariffs, without even getting any of the supposed benefits of tariffs. Now, I'm not advocating to keep tariffs. I actually am happy that tariffs are removed, but tariffs being removed is a step. It's not a solution to the problems that we've caused for ourselves. And what we're seeing is we're getting the costs, we're losing our markets, people don't trust us anymore, but we're not even getting the benefits that we were sold. We're not going to get the benefits of increased jobs. We're not going to get the benefits of tax revenues on goods that are tariffed, because those tariffs aren't ever there consistently enough for those things to be taken advantage of. And what we see is what happens when you go into foreign policy without a plan. When you don't have a plan, you get all of the costs, you get none of the benefits. Now, by the way, this should probably frustrate everybody, even those who voted for Trump. And actually, in some ways, those who voted for Trump should be the most frustrated of all. Because if you're a person who really believes in Trump's tariffs, and you really believe that they are going to do good for the United States, and that's part of the reason you voted for Donald Trump, you should ask why he doesn't have the strength to pursue that policy consistently. If tariffs really are supposed to protect the US economy, if tariffs really are supposed to create this manufacturing boom that's going to bring so many jobs and so much prosperity back to the United States, why is Trump unable or unwilling to push through the downturns to get the better outcome that he always talks about and he says he's so convinced is really there? If you really believe in that, why can't you pursue it consistently? And what you really see is that Trump doesn't have the strength of a wise warrior. Trump has strength like the strength of a bully. The kind of strength that is very willing to push people around and act and look tough, but not the kind of strength that is able to stand their ground when other people start pushing back. Instead, he just quickly reverses his policies and he tries to frame it as a win. Now, speaking of not having the strength to stand your ground, I am getting absolutely eaten by mosquitoes right now, which I was not expecting considering that I am in the middle of a desert. So I'm going to close this video and head to the car. But before I do that, just a quick shout out. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, but also you can support the channel in a couple of different ways. Buy me a coffee or Patreon. There's links in the description. Super grateful for all of the support. I don't put anything behind paywalls. It's just a way for people to support the channel if they want to. I appreciate it all, guys, and I look forward to making the next video. So I'll see you on the next one.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I agree with a lot of things that he has talked about, honestly, and looking at geopolitical lenses of the crazy things that are happening in the United States. And it seems like everyone is trying to cut ties with the United States because they don't want to do trade. At the end of the day, when you put tariffs, this is going to be crushing the oil market and everyone is affected. And the United States, since it's failing, it wants also to fail with other countries. But people are trying, different countries are trying to look for different alternatives. Like we have the BRICS, which was already established and is always finding its own ways without relying on the United States currency to begin with. Now, from this comment section that I watched from the video, you'll get to have the perspective, and this would prove how people have given up on the United States, really. Even people who don't stay in the United States that used to believe the United States is geopolitical power, it being one of the most countries which people look up to, countries which considered as superpower, right? And with these geopolitical shifts that are happening today, the things that we are envisioning, it seems that it can never be great because it has already failed. And it doesn't seem that it will revive itself. People say that the fall of the United States is inevitable and people are not seeing it coming or thriving back from the United States as it used to be. So I want us to look at people's opinion in regards to this. People are talking, even people outside the United States are talking about this. And today I decided to look deep into what are people saying. The comments of the same video What are people saying in regards to this? Now, somebody say that I'm an Australian. The US has a big trade surplus with us. How can they then explain the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium and 10% of everything else? I personally feel angry about this. I am now dead set not buying any US product, whatever it have alternatives. I feel for those Americans who did not vote for Trump or voted for him unthinkingly, who may be affected by this kind of sentiment on the global level. But it's a feeling in my gut. Yeah, I think I've spoken so much about that, especially in this channel, for the decisions that people make. And I want to say that the United States is so, it's having, it's multi-faced with a lot of things. There are a lot of political nuances and political identity nuances. We have black, brown, Hispanics, and all these affect the decisions that people make in regards to what they do. In what they do, as I said. Somebody's also saying, how is it here? The sentiment shift is permanent. Even if the US elects sane people to try to undo the damages, we will always face the risk of this happening again. Yeah, like I said, people are so speculative about the fall of the United States, and people are not seeing it rise anytime soon. A Canadian here, the sentiment among many Canadians is betrayal. I think many Canadians felt that we were we were the closest ally, and we had a trade deal that was negotiated with Trump during his first term. He now wants to negotiate another deal, but who's to say he's going to honor that new deal if unilaterally stop honoring his previous deal? A problem. Somebody is saying, also another Canadian saying, I cancelled Amazon Prime, Netflix, boycott American products, change soap and cosmetics brands, travel in my own country, no more American stuff and culture in my life. Canadian, British, European have great stuff to offer. We just have to discover it. And I think even Americans themselves are having these problems with the American products, the American things. And just like recently when TikTok was taken down, right? You get to find that a lot of American citizens came to notice that there is life outside all these things that we've been seeing. Our healthcare system is charging us so high. Our housing system is charging us so high. And when they add through the Chinese app, that period when just TikTok was down, they get to learn that there's so many things that they're being exploited about. And I get to realize that I understand if this brother here is trying to boycott all these things, because for me, I feel like Trump is trying to serve the oligarchs, the top 1% of the United States, because they own all these factors of production. They own all these companies, that the ones who run all these things. So I agree with him when he says that, right? And even black people in the United States are boycotting all these things, trying to find an alternative, something that really serves them as compared to what is being offered to them. Somebody from Swedish is saying, I have completely lost my faith in the USA because how both Biden and Trump have handled the war from Russia against Ukraine. There are no words for how Trump has acted since towards the rest of the world. I have lost my faith in the USA, and the only ones who can sort this out are the American people. It is true. It is about the citizens to stand up and revive the country and take their country from the hands of oligarchs, right? You need to fight for your freedom, just like Malcolm X said. Sometimes it will force you to fight for your freedom. Take it forcefully, right? Somebody saying that I'm European living in the States. My last two cars were American vehicles built in the United States. Ford, BV, and GMC gasoline pickup. I am moving back to Europe, and my next vehicle will be a Toyota. From now on, I'll be purchasing a little American products as possible. People are slow boycotting American products because they are controlled by the oligarchs and they know the truth. That's why they say that the power belongs to people. Because if just people decide not to consume their services, buy their products, they're going to crush them. Hi. Somebody's saying that I'm from Poland. In our schools, children learn about the aid that the United States gave to our ruined country after the First World War. They learned about the Marshall Plan for Europe, which Poland had to abandon, forced by the USSR for ideological reasons. We considered President Reagan to be one of the authors of the fall of the Iron Curtain, and we elected a monument in his honor in Warsaw. We have always thought that America are like us. We love freedom and are a reliable ally. After all, Pulaski and Kosciuszko were Poles. We buy energy resources from the US, and our army uses F-116s, Abrams, and Patriots, and recently bought F-35s. And we got US interest in the EU so effectively that our European partners often accused us of being Washington's Trojan's horse. Now, he continues by saying, after President Trump's treatment of Ukraine and his approach to Russia, we felt as if someone had dug the floor out from under our feet. We have been made fools. Our strategic plans and trust in the US have turned out to be worthless. And this in a situation where the Russians are standing at our gates and do not hide the fact that we are next after Ukraine and the Baltic countries. And on top of that, the Americans are starting a trade war with us. We still remain friends and allies. We still want Europe and the US to maintain close military and trade ties. But regardless of what politicians say officially, Europe, everyone feels how heavy the atmosphere is. I will put it this way. Regardless of what happens next, President Trump will never be a monument in Warsaw. It's true, people are losing trust in the United States, even the country friends like Europe, right? People are questioning because Trump has literally betrayed every single person except the oligarchs, except the top 1%, except those who he reports to. Somebody's also saying, Canadian here, it's amazing how one demented man successfully brought one of the most polite people on the planet to have such a grudge against the USA. We know it all, Americans who want to rip our friendship like that. But how can we trust you not to elect another demented man again? The damage is gonna take a lot of time and good intentions to heal. Somebody's saying, keep up your good work, Paul. I believe you are one of the part of the solutions. Yeah, speaking about it is one of the solutions that at least people can have to talk about this. Somebody's also saying that what Trump doesn't seem to understand is that virtually every country will be working to plan to find safer trading partners. Least he is still thinking is working a deal. We are all thinking we need to get away from this idiot. No one knows what will happen in the future, but when we know America isn't safe, stable condition to trade with, and that's true because people are getting to run away from all that craziness, and America is untrustable. Nobody is trusting the United States. Somebody's also saying that as a European, it's also worth noting that these negative feelings and distrust will likely persist past this presidency. The first time you guys voted Trump in, we passed it as a fluke and an error of judgment. But you saw what he did the first time and you voted him in again. And by a lot, we're so angry with the American people as much as we are with Trump. The fact that you as a populace could and will vote for a man like this in again in the future, if the mood strikes, you generally makes it hard to trust your country. It will take work and personal reflection by you as populace to repair that trust. Things that we've been talking about. Dan Shear. Everybody in here has already said the exact same about feeling of betrayal, so I'll just refer to them explaining my feelings and my opinions, and it is true. People are trying to explain Their betrayal. Somebody's saying that realist European here. Thanks again, Paul. What is brilliant about Paul's analysis is that he can sum up the intelligent, well-informed thinking person's views in an organized, eloquent, and succinct way that a few commentators can do. We all may be rambling thoughts garnered from other commentators and articles about the topic. In the instance, the question of tariffs, I've argued. Yeah, it's true what it's saying. So, generally, as you have heard, people are giving up on the US. Somebody saying that I was on the new Tesla Model Y list but cancelled it. Will buy a Korean EV instead. If the US doesn't want to trade, let it be. There's so many other countries to trade with. Make America great is turning out to be make America alone. Somebody's also saying that German here, by electing Trump, the Americans showed us their attitude. In fact, they spat in the face of all allies and friends in Europe. And don't say anyone but Democrats. America could have chosen a more adequate Republican as well. Well, we wiped our face and drew conclusions. I mean, I could read it all, but everyone in the comment section keep on complaining about the same thing. And also blaming Americans who decided to choose Mr. Donald Trump. Because by that, they are saying that they showed them their attitude. This represented Jintek Stories. I honestly don't know how you feel about this, but I'd like to know, you as an American who is watching this, you hearing people's perspective, what can you say about it? What do you feel about it? Hi. I'm hoping to see you in my next video. But until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salud.